say Kush, Kenset, and Kemet, the 3Ks, before, of course, that was taken to another zone. So, yes, that's about it as far as my work in the legacy is concerned. As you perhaps know, many of you knew that I pounded the beat in New York City, in some of the toughest neighborhoods as a police officer. I would say not a police officer, as a peace officer, because I brought the peace. And of course, many of my superiors had a problem with that because I spent a lot of time talking to people. And one of the ways I used to clear the corner, the brothers shooting dice, and I would come and I would start talking about African history. Oh, we don't want to hear that. I said, well, then the beat is mine, right? The corner is mine. If you don't want to hear what I have to say, you will have to move. Otherwise, we'll call the wagon. And of course, they cooperated, and I love my people. They loved me back. When superiors tried to move me off post, the people got a petition to bring me back. And in the 20 years, I carried the key of life and never had to use my gun on or off duty. Matter of fact, the last time I went to the firing range, when I pull out the weapon, a big piece of lint came out of the barrel. The guy said, he looked at me as if I was, he said, you don't clean this thing? I said, I never touch it. But I became an expert marksman with the 38 revolver, the on-duty one and off-duty one. But I don't like guns. I never did. I carried it because it came with the job, and but it stayed in my holster. The only time I was struck twice by two men who struck me, and of course, when I struck back, I laid them both out because I used to do boxing when I was young, and I remember when I visited Muhammad Ali up at his camp in Pennsylvania. He said, you want to spar with me? You're a big guy. I said, I don't want to hurt you, Muhammad. And he laughed, of course. Yes, sir. So that's a little bit about what I do. And today I continue to work in the studio, creating these fantastic emblems of our culture. These are emblems of meditation that can take you into the fields of discovery of our ancient culture, the fields of the Neteru. Like, for instance, right now I'm wearing Heru, but I got Set because you see, Heru and Set are two parts of who we are. We have levity and we have gravity. We trace our culture back to the stars. As a matter of fact, Rich One, I call this brother Rich, I call him Rich One. Rich One came to my studio once to do a tape with me and the pills, red and blue pill. And he was looking around, looking at the pyramids and saw the beautiful stuff I did, but he saw a picture on the wall of a sun with the rays descending from it, almost similar to the one right behind his, and he said, yeah, right behind his, he said, I want one like that. And I see, Brother Rich, you got it. And it's really big, man. It's beautiful. Mm-hmm. It's a good background for you, my brother. And hey, have you noticed how young Brother Rich is getting? I think he's been eating Tassili's punani sandwiches.
The punani wrap. Oh, man.
Maybe Tassili, she's got some great stuff, man. I remember going down there to do a talk at her yearly gathering that she has. Mm-hmm. And boy, that kale salad will make you sit down. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
So you're looking great, Brother Rich. You get younger and younger every time I see you.
Hey, thank you, my brother. You looking great as well, my elder. To start out with, I know you got a lot to say about accessing this divine realm of the Neteru, and there's so much talk about meditation and accessing this, what we call the quantum field. There's so many different names for it, depending on whether you're in science or spirituality. But before we get started, I want to ask you, so many years of experience in the spiritual community and just in developing your divine spirit and your divine self. I want to ask you, my brother, my elder, what word would you use to best describe accessing spirituality, your spiritual journey? I mean, is it the intellect? Like, what do you use? Do you use intellect? Do you use your spirituality? Do you use intuition? Do you use your gut feeling? Do you like what word in the English language would you use to describe how you access this? Because I think that's very important.
Well, I would call it a sacred science, simply a
Hmm.
sacred science.
Hmm.
And I tell you, I stumbled upon it because of the fact that I'm into creativity because my home netter is Ptah.
Hmm.
My street netter is Heru,
Hmm.
especially Heru Kahuti,
Hmm.
and which means, of course, the warrior spirit of Heru. And when I taught Kinetics 101, I taught the students, I said, I gave them the legend of Ast and Asar, who they call Isis and Osiris. And I would ask them, I would say, who is your mother? Everyone in the class would say, Osset or Ast. Someone would say Isis. I say, well, who is your father? Asar, who they call Osiris. I say, well, who are you? Everybody in the class say Heru. I say, okay, so if you're Heru, what is your first mission in this resurrection? What is your, and the answer would be to serush ma'at, to restore ma'at. Because you see, ma'at, people say, are you a Kemite? I claim the spirituality of the Kemetic ancestors of the Nile, but I claim ma'at. That is, Kemet gives me the template that leads me to the discovery of this ancient spiritual high culture known as Ma'at. According to our ancestors, Ma'at is the order of the universe. Ma'at keeps the planets in their orbit. Ma'at keeps the sun in its orbit. It keeps the stars in their orbits. And that same order is replicated on the earth plane. So it's a marriage of heaven and earth, if you want to put it that way, of Pet, the heaven, and Ta, earth, Ptah. You see? So I spend a lot of time in what I call the Seket Ptah, the field of Ptah, talking about quantum fields. I remind people that modern science is using terms that are drawn from the template of the Greek and Latin sources, but they don't seem to respect the older source, which gave Greece and Rome its elementary science. Because don't forget, in 332 BC, the Greeks came into Kemet. And when they built the city of Alexandria, they raided all of the temples and brought the books back to Alexandria. And this is where they got their earliest elementary education. You see, so Plato and Socrates and all of them studied in Alexandria, which is in Kemet, now called Egypt, all right? And the northeastern section of Smai Kawi. And that's one of the things that in Smai Tawi, we're speaking about unity, the unity of the two regions, okay, the north and the south. But not only unity of the north and the south geographically, but unity of heaven and earth, unity of the right and left brain hemispheres. You see, unity of masculine and feminine. This is especially your internal masculine and feminine, because we are now in the age of Hapi, which if you see in the temple walls, and I always go to the temple walls as my original template because that's primary evidence of a way of thinking and being that many of us have lost. It's still in our subconscious, but you got to put on your diving suit and go very deep to root it out and bring it to the surface. And guess what? When you bring it to the surface, it frightens a lot of people. And people become very intimidated because they want to know, what are you talking about? I never heard of that before. You see, in Kinetics 101, I taught people with all kind of degrees going up and down their backs, but they never touched this knowledge. And many of them became angry that they went to the height of Western education and knew nothing about the true story of the Nile Valley culture, because it had been encased in a gyp known as Egyptology.
Mm.
You see, instead of its true name of Smaitawiology or even chematology. That would be the true name, because the word Egypt is foreign. It comes from the Greek word aiguputus, which was a mispronunciation of a town that the Greeks came into known as Het Pataka, or House of the Soul of Ptah, the place now called Memphis, which we called Mennefer, which means established in beauty. You see, so these are some of the things that I speak about. And to speak about the Seket Neteru, the field of the Neteru, how do you access these fields?
Yes. Yes.
Well, guess what? To access these fields, you've got to study and know that such things exist. You know about the archangels, you know about the seraphims and the cherubims and all of that, but you know nothing about the template from which that was taken. And we are speaking of forces that are indwelling as well as outdwelling, that everything that is on earth is replicated in the cosmos. The earth is a microcosmic manifestation of the larger cosmos, you see, and all that is out there is in here. And when I say in here, I mean in here. The Neteru, the field of the Neteru are there waiting for us to call them forth. And that's the reason why I would suggest that you make the effort to know their names in the original language of the Metunerer, or some say Metunetcher. I don't argue about the different dialects that we have. I just like to play with sound. You know, as you know, I'm a musician. I had a band in the 80s, and I sang a lot of the legacy songs. And of course, people just wanted music to shake their butts to, and I was to teach them through music. And I played the guitar, and I wrote my own songs, and we had the Kemet Rising Ensemble. If you go on YouTube, you will see some of our presentations. We were up at Sutton's Bar and Grill in Harlem on 145th Street. The woman brought us in there for a month, and we stayed about 3 months, and she chased us out because nobody was buying drinks. Everybody was drinking John Harris's green juice and his pea soup, you know, and stuff like that, his lentil soup. So yeah, I've been about this work for a very long time. But let's get back to the Neteru. How do you access the Neteru? Well, look, I am wearing a meditation on Heru on my finger right now. Why this falcon? Well, all spiritual paths, all cultures have their bird. Here in America, you've got the eagle, right? The Native Americans called it the thunderbird, right? In Kemet, it was the falcon. Why? Because it flies higher than any other bird. It can be 2 miles up in the air. It can spot a mouse on the ground or a flock of pigeons, and whatever it decides to have for dinner, it never misses what it aims for. Its sight is so keen, it can look in the sun without blinking. And that is the kind of insight that we must have about ourselves, because there's so much going on that we are blinking a lot we can hardly see anymore. Okay? So we must begin to look within, because the answers are right inside of us. You have been told when you go to Sunday school that the God is within you. Well, how do you access this God? How do you access this energy? Well, you cannot just go directly to the chairman of the board. You got to go pass through his vice presidents of this or that before you can get into the high seat. You see, so now if you want to access your Heruship, then make up your mind to live a life based upon Ma'at. Truth, righteousness, balance, order. You've heard this before. I know you know what Ma'at is, but the fact is, we have not collectively made that word impossible to lose because we do not use it enough. Those of you who are into graffiti, I want you to put that feather up on the walls of this city, because righteousness is the symbol of Ma'at, is that feather. It's an ostrich feather that's very light. My brother Ptah, my brother Paur, Teuti Paur Sepeta. He's my brother from my mother's womb. He wrote a song called Keep Your Heart as Light as a Feather, which means keep your heart in Ma'at. Go within. Contact the intelligence of your heart. Because you see, you are thinking with this up here. You don't think with this, you see. And but of course, in your brain, the heart of your brain is your pineal gland, as you well know, that pine-shaped object in the center of your brain. And that's the reason why when I speak and I try to speak the metuneter, I say why? Because right on the other side of the ceiling of my mouth is where the pineal rests. You see, so that energy will activate energy within the pineal process, you see, and keep me more alive. Since I am into creativity, I can't wait to get up in the morning, because at night I'm thinking what I'm going to do next for these people who are coming into wakefulness. What beauty can I bring to my people? Okay, that's why, as you can see, I love color. I wear color. Right now I'm wearing this crown that has a lotus. Why a lotus? Because a lotus, though it grows in filth, it brings forth such beauty. Okay, because we are surrounded by so much negativity, especially these days, compliments of you know whom. We need to emphasize my art. We need to emphasize truth. That's the reason why I wear emblems of my art. Okay, and as I said before, that feather, I have very many emblems with the symbol of my art. I wish I had one day, Rich One, I have to come on and really show the people the extent of the work I've done. Over 50 years of designing